Believe me, the conditions of art are much simpler than people imagine. For the noblest art, one requires a clear, healthy atmosphere, not polluted as the air of our English cities is by the smoke and grime and horridness which comes from open furnace and from factory chimney. You must have a strong and healthy physique among your men and women. Sickly or idle or melancholy people don't do much in art, believe me. And lastly, you require a sense of individualism about each man and woman, because that, the very keynote of life, is also the essence of art. A desire on the part of man to express the noblest side of his nature in the noblest way, to show the world how many things he can reverence, love, and understand. For the motives of art lie about you in all directions, as they were around about the ancients. If the modern sculptor were to ask me where he should go for a model, I would tell him that he might, if he would, find in everyday life subjects in the nobility of labor entirely worthy of his attention, the depicting of men in their daily work. There is not a worker in mine or ditch, in the shop or at the furnace, who is not at some moment of his work in graceful attitude. Such scenes of beauty lie at the scientific basic of aesthetics, which is not mere dainty ornament and luxury, but the expression of strength, utility, and health. Whoever saw an ungraceful smith at his anvil, or an ungraceful carpenter at his bench? The most graceful thing I ever beheld was a miner in a Colorado silver mine, driving a new shaft with a hammer. At any moment he might have been transformed into marble or bronze and become noble in art forever. Work is man's great prerogative, and the real essential of art. It is only the loafer and the idle saunterer who is as useless and uninteresting to the artist as he is to himself. Or I would ask the sculptor to go with me to any of your schools or universities, to the running ground and gymnasium, to watch the young men start for a race, hurling quio or curb, kneeling to tie their shoes before leaping, stepping from the boat, or bending to the oar and to carve them. The Greek sculptor asked for no higher subject for art than could be found on the running ground or in the gymnasium, and I recommend that plaster casts of the best Greek statuary be placed in all gymnasiums as models to correct that foolish impression that mental culture and athletics are always divorced. There is and has been in Europe one school of painters and sculptors whose favorite subjects in their work are kings and queens, and another whose talent and genius are employed in the reproduction of faces and forms on canvas and in marble of saints and kindred subjects in reality and ideality. Now the Greeks sculptured gods and goddesses because they loved them, and in the Middle Ages, saints and kings because they believed in them. But the saint is now hardly prominent enough a feature to become a motive for high art, and the day of kings and queens is gone, and so art should now sculpture the men who cover the world with a network of iron and a sea with ships. Thus a universal deference to the dignity of the kingdom of industry would do much to reconcile the workman with his lot, and end the strife and bridge the now widening chasm between capital and labor. And so, as I said, find your subjects in everyday life, your own men and women, your own flowers and fields, your own hills and mountains. These are what your art should represent to you, for every nation can represent with prudence or with success only those things in which it delights. What you have with you and before you daily, dearest to your sight and to your heart, by the magic of your hand or the music of your lips, you can gloriously express to others. All these commend themselves to the thoughtful student and artist. Not merely has nature given you the noblest motives for a new school of decoration, but to you, above all other countries, has she given the materials to work in. The noble Titan forests, out of which you build your houses, should be an incentive to wood carving, because the beautiful in art can be built only of wood well carved. I wish to say a little about your wooden houses, which are painted in the most oppressive colors I have ever seen, but it does seem to me that the adoption of the prevailing color, white, with which you cover them, making the white walls appear as a sheet of white flame in the noonday sun, is a gross mistake when the barrenness of the houses is overcome so easily by wood carving, which is the simplest of the decorative arts and the one in which the artist is least likely to go astray. In Switzerland, the little barefoot shepherd boy that blows a horn all day on the hills after some stray goats will return home, and there carve in wood over his father's door the figures of birds and flowers he has seen, and beautifies the house with his art. What a Swiss boy can do well, an American boy can do twice as well if he is properly taught to do it. There is nothing, to my mind, more coarse in conception, nothing more vulgar in execution than modern jewelry. How easy for you to change all that and to produce goldsmith's work that would be a joy to all of us. In Europe we have not the quantity of gold and of silver that lies around you in your mountain hollows or strewn along your river beds. And our jewelers have not the opportunities of those in America as artificers of these metals. Yet when I was in Leadville, the richest city for silver in the world, and heard of the most incredible quantity of silver taken from its mountains, I thought how sad it was that the silver should be made into flat, ugly dollars. Useful, perhaps, to the artist, for dollars are very good in their way, but which should not be the end and aim of life. There should be some better record of it left in your history than in the merchant's panic and the ruined home. We discover, remember often enough, how constantly the history of great nation will live in and by its art. Only a few thin wreaths of beaten gold are all that remain to tell us of the stately empire of Etruria. And while from the streets of Florence the noble knight and haughty duke have long since passed away, the gates which the simple goldsmith Ghiberti made for their pleasure still guard their lovely house of baptism, worthy still of the praise of Michelangelo, who called them worthy to be the gates of paradise.